He clocked in for the last time on a Tuesday in October. 33 years. Same company. Same desk. Same coffee mug with a chip on the handle he never bothered to replace. His name was Daniel, and by every measure the financial world uses to judge a man's life choices, he had won. $2.1 million sitting in a retirement account. No debt, no mortgage, a modest house paid off in full. He had followed every rule in the book, maxed out his contributions every single year, lived below his means, skipped the vacations, skipped the hobbies, told himself the same thing every time an opportunity came and went, later. I'll do it later. When I retire, I'll have all the time in the world. At 65, Daniel finally had the time. He just didn't have the body to go with it. 3 years before his retirement date, Daniel had a heart attack. He survived, but the man who walked out of that hospital was not the same man who walked in. His cardiologist delivered the news calmly. The way doctors deliver news they've delivered 100 times before. International travel, too risky. Sailing, the dream he'd been nursing since his 40s, off the table. Physically demanding adventures, not for him. Not anymore. His retirement arrived on schedule. The money was there. The energy was gone. Now Daniel spends his days taking gentle walks around the neighborhood, watching the Travel Channel, sitting on beaches he can no longer swim from. He has $2.1 million and a very short list of things he is still physically capable of doing. He saved everything for a finish line. And the finish line moved the moment he crossed it. My name is Marcus, and I want to have an honest conversation with you today. The kind no financial advisor will have with you, because the financial industry doesn't profit from what I'm about to say. This video is not about abandoning your retirement savings. It is not about spending recklessly or ignoring your future. It is about one specific, dangerous, widely accepted lie. That the smartest thing you can do with your working years is grind through all of them and reward yourself at the end. That lie is costing people the best years of their lives. If you are deferring your real life to some future date when you will finally be free, stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you changes the math entirely. And if this kind of honest financial perspective is something you want more of, hit subscribe and tap that like button. It helps this channel reach people who need to hear this. Let's start with the assumption buried inside traditional retirement advice. The assumption is this: you will be healthy and energetic at 65. That's the whole bet. 40 years of grinding, delaying, deferring. It only pays off if the future version of you is capable of cashing in on it. So what does the data actually say? Research on aging consistently shows that the average person's physical capacity, strength, endurance, cardiovascular output, mobility, peaks somewhere in their late 20s and begins a measurable decline after 35. By the time most people reach traditional retirement age, they have significantly less muscle mass and meaningfully lower aerobic capacity than they had during their peak years. That's not pessimism. That's physiology. The activities that require real energy, hiking remote trails, learning a new physical skill, long travel through demanding terrain, the kind of adventures that live rent-free in your head while you're sitting under fluorescent office lighting. Those activities don't care how much money you have saved. They care whether your body can do them. And your body is on a clock that does not pause while you're optimizing your 401k. Daniel wanted to sail. At 35, that was entirely possible. A few months of lessons. Some weekends on the water. Maybe eventually something bigger, bolder. His body could have handled all of it. At 65, with a damaged heart, impossible. No amount of money reverses that. Here's the number that should stop you cold. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control, roughly 60% of Americans over 65 are living with at least one chronic health condition that limits their physical activity. 60%. That means the odds of reaching traditional retirement age in the physical condition you're picturing when you imagine your retirement, healthy, energetic, ready to finally live, those odds are worse than a coin flip. You are not planning for a likely future. You are gambling on a favorable outcome that most people don't receive. And the financial system never tells you this. Because the financial system profits from the 40-year grind. Every year you contribute to a managed account, fees are collected. Every year you remain productive inside a company, value is generated for someone else. Nobody collecting fees has an incentive to tell you to take 6 months off at 34 and go hike through South America. That doesn't generate revenue, but it might generate the most important thing you can have: A life you actually lived while your body could do it. Let me show you what the math actually looks like when you run it honestly. Say you earn $78,000 a year across your career. Same as Daniel. Now imagine a different version of Daniel. Let's call him Daniel B., who understood this problem in his early 30s and made a different choice. Daniel B. took a 6-month break from work every 5 years. Starting at 30, by 65, he had taken 6 of what I call mini retirements, 6 deliberate pauses, spread across his working life, totaling 3 years of time off. During those 3 years, he earned nothing. In gross income terms, that's roughly $230,000 he didn't make. But he also contributed to his retirement accounts for 30 years instead of 33. Here's where most people assume the math falls apart. It doesn't, because compound growth does the majority of its work in the final years of a long savings window, not the early ones. The difference between 30 years of contributions and 33 years is significant, but it is not catastrophic. Daniel B. arrives at 65 with approximately $1.8 million instead of $2.1 million. He gave up $300,000 in final balance. In exchange, he got 3 years, spread across his 30s and 40s, of using his body when it actually worked. 3 years of travel, physical adventure, presence, and experience that no amount of money can purchase retroactively. Which Daniel is richer? By the number on the account statement, the first one. By every other meaningful measurement of a human life, the second one. Decisively, I want to address something directly. Because I know what some of you are thinking. Marcus, this sounds great for people with high incomes. Most people can't just take 6 months off whenever they feel like it. I hear that, and you're right. With your current spending structure, you probably can't. But here's what changes when you actually run the numbers. If you earn $78,000 a year and you're currently saving 20% for retirement, you're contributing roughly $15,600 annually. Over 5 years, that's $78,000 in retirement savings. Now increase that savings rate by 5%. Just 5. You're now saving 25%, contributing $19,500 per year. Over 5 years, that's an additional $19,500 beyond your original contribution pace. That $19,000, combined with strategic spending choices during a sabbatical, is enough to fund 6 months of real, substantive time off if you're intentional about where you go and how you live. 6 months in Southeast Asia. 6 months in Central America. 6 months traveling slowly, cooking your own food, living modestly in places where your dollar goes further than it does at home. You're not staying at 5-star resorts. You're living, fully, presently, physically, in a way that an extra 300 square feet of office space will never give you. The point is not luxury. The point is time while your body still cooperates. Here is the deeper truth underneath all of this. Money is a renewable resource. If you spend it, you can earn more. Markets recover. Incomes grow. Savings rebuild. Energy is not renewable. You are given a finite supply. It begins declining the moment you stop growing. And every single experience that requires physical capacity, every hike, every surf lesson, every demanding journey through unfamiliar terrain, becomes harder, then difficult, then eventually impossible, whether you have tried it or not. The energy you do not use in your 30s does not roll over. It does not sit in an account earning interest, waiting for you to access it at retirement. It disappears, and you cannot buy it back. This is the trade that nobody explains clearly. Every year you choose grinding over living, you are not simply postponing an experience. You are paying for that delay with a currency that cannot be refunded. Daniel cannot hike Patagonia now. It is not a question of money. He has $2 million. It is a question of a heart that cannot handle altitude and exertion. No financial instrument exists that fixes that. So what do you actually do with this information? Here is a concrete framework. Step 1. Calculate your number. A well-structured 6-month mini retirement, if you're strategic about location, costs somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. If you can live on $3,000 a month, and many people live on less when they're traveling slowly through lower cost of living regions, you need $18,000. That is your sabbatical fund target. It is separate from your retirement contributions, which you do not stop. Set an additional savings goal of $3,000 per year. In 6 years, you have your fund. You keep building retirement savings the entire time. Step 2. Make it specific now. Do not wait until you have the money and then decide what to do. That is how it never happens. Decide today what that 6 months is for. Be specific enough that you could describe it to someone and they'd know exactly what you meant. In 5 years, I am spending 6 months learning to dive and living in the Philippines. In 6 years, I am hiking a long trail and then spending 3 months working on my language skills in Spain. The specificity makes it a goal instead of a wish. Goals get funded, wishes get deferred until the body gives out. Step 3. Solve the employment problem. Some employers have sabbatical programs. Most do not. If yours does not, you may need to be willing to leave and rejoin the workforce after your break. This is where people stop themselves. The fear is real, but here is what experience consistently shows. Someone who returns to job searching after a deliberate, purposeful break and can speak about it clearly and honestly in an interview is not at a disadvantage. The right employers see self-direction and intentionality as assets, not liabilities. The wrong employers, the ones who penalize you for having taken time to actually live, are probably not places you should build the next chapter of your career anyway. Step 4. Use your energy, not your budget. When you take the time, don't spend it sitting still. The whole point of a mini retirement in your 30s or 40s is that your body can do things it will not be able to do later. Design your time around physical experience. Climb, swim, hike, learn something that requires physical capability and presence. Use the resource that is actually declining. Here is where I'll leave you. Daniel did everything correctly by the conventional playbook. He followed every rule. He maxed every account. He deferred every pleasure. He worked right through his 30s and 40s and 50s without a real break, building toward a future version of himself who would finally be free. That future version arrived at 65 with $2.1 million and a body that could not do most of the things the plan had been built around. He is not an edge case. He is the median outcome of a system that optimizes for wealth accumulation at the expense of the only window in which certain experiences are physically available to you. The strategy I've described today isn't reckless. It isn't anti-savings. It isn't financially immature. It is a recognition that you are not optimizing for a number. You are optimizing for a life. And a life is built from what you actually did, not what you saved enough to theoretically do someday. Your 30s are not a waiting room. Your 40s are not a holding pattern. They are the years when your body is capable of things it will never be capable of again. Use them.